women than ever are retiring from long-established careers. All the research says that people need passion and purpose to live fulfilling lives. In Australia, a woman's superannuation payout is on average 1/3 of men's. Additionally, 1 in 3 women, Australian women, retire with no superannuation at all. This is also the largest growing group of risk of homelessness in Australia. Maria Paterakis has begun a new program called Retiring with Joy TV, and a pleasure and a privilege to have her as a guest on the Laughter Channel today. Maria, thank you so much for being with us today. I'm really excited about where this conversation is going to go. Tell me
Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about what's the journey that brought you to your program, Retiring with Joy?
Well, it's been quite a journey, and if you told me 5 years ago that I would be doing this, I would not have believed you at all. So I moved to the Gold Coast 3.5 years ago, pregnant with my second child in my early 40s, and having had varied and extensive work experience in all sorts of areas, from policy to politics, and most of all, my most loved area, counselling. So when it came to the time to start contemplating, thinking about work, I've had the baby, I've got 2 under 6 at home, what am I going to do now? I do want to start working. I started to apply for counselling jobs in non-government organisations, as I always did, and I wasn't getting anywhere with it. And I naively said, I'll just start my own business. Well, from naive things, amazing things can happen, but you end up really learning a lot in the process.
Yes.
So I started 2 years ago, where I thought, I'll start my own counselling service, but it was so broad. I almost treated myself like a counselling service that could see everyone. And I've soon discovered after that you really need to, in your own business, be very, very clear about who your target group is, what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
So after 18 months of searching of what exactly is that, I came across the idea of working with women who are transitioning into retirement. And that's how I got here. And it's so exciting, and I'm loving the doors that are opening and the people that I've met, and it all started with falling into the right mentorship group.
Okay.
And that's really important. Find your community of like-minded people who can help you to grow and really look at yourself so that you can move to the next step, because otherwise you can stay stuck for a really long time.
Yeah. So was there like a pivotal moment that led to this?
Absolutely, there was. So I was feeling quite lost, and I said to my husband, I'm taking a break. I'm not chasing work. I'm not going to be marketing myself. I just need to take a break and really think about what I'm doing and who I want to work with and who I want to help, because in the end, I'm really passionate about certain things. One of them is empowering women. I think that as a woman who's starting to move into the middle of later, I know that I don't want to stop. I don't want to be told who I should be ever. I don't like that now. So why should that change? So I took a break, and I just started thinking, and I was one day sitting down, I was watching The Drum. I love The Drum. Yes, it's a big tension in my house, The Drum or ABC Kids, The Drum or ABC Kids. And I won that day, and they had a special on women over 50, and it was a fantastic panel. And I absolutely love and adore Jane Caro, the journalist, and how she says things so rawly and real. And she mentioned that there was a big gap of services, that so many services are targeted towards younger people, and there's this huge group of women who are just left to pretty much fend for themselves as they go through the aging process. And I just went bing, 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 bing. I got the tingle, my hair rose on end, you know how it is, the intuition kicked in, and I just went, oh, that's the thing. And I already had a program that I had developed, which was about empowering women, and it didn't take much to really just find that information, do the research, target it towards women who are going through that life experience, whether you're just planning or if you're semi-retired, if you're retired, it doesn't matter at which stage of the process you're at. This program, it fits for everyone. And when you get that group of women around that table and they all start connecting and talking, and the wisdom comes out, and the energy starts to build, and everyone starts to I'll do a bit of dancing in there too, and it's just really, really beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's what I love.
Yeah. I've been connected for a while to a man by the name of Stephen Jenkinson, and his work has been predominantly in grief, initially in palliative care, and more recently. And the reason I mention him is he's on a national tour or international tour at the moment, and presenting on elders and wisdom, right? And he's just lamenting at how we're losing that. A lot of our culture doesn't honour and celebrate in the traditions that other cultures do. So I love that you've picked that up. I really do.
I just wanted to mention as well, sorry to interrupt you, but I just wanted to mention that more people turn 60 this year than any time before in human history.
Wow.
And we are living a lot longer. It could be up to 30 years. Now, 30 years is a really long time to just rest.
Yes.
I don't know. For me, it is. I can't do 30 years of rest. I can do 30 years of rest and other things, maybe more on my terms, living things that I may not have had time to do while I was raising children. But I really couldn't just do rest for 30 years. And I have had women comment to me, and I'm sure it's not just women, and I'm sure that there is definitely room out there for work with men specifically. But I'm just, at this point, I'm just working with women. Could change in the future. But the point I was trying to make is they'll say, I've been on my holiday, and then I had a rest from my holiday, and then I went on a holiday, and then I've had rest from my holiday, and now I don't know what else to do. Right? And the other part of it is we are retiring healthier, with more energy and more expertise and more wisdom than ever before.
Yeah.
And there's so much to give, and our culture does not value, as it should, as many other cultures do, that age group in general.
Yes.
Just doesn't.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So what are your top 3 values? I'm really curious.
So I do this with my clients. I do this in the group. Give me your top 5 values. And they'll go, oh my gosh, I had so many more. And I have to be honest, I've got 4. That's okay. So compassion is there because compassion is my number 1 value in general. And really, if I was to be more specific, self-compassion. Yep. Because I think that there is a real lack, especially for women, to have that strong sense of self-compassion when you've put others before yourself so much. The other one is connection or community. Really wanting to create a really strong, vibrant community of women who lift each other up. So that's really important to me. And that it's all around growth. Growth does not stop. We keep growing. And finally, let's do it with passion.
Yes.
Okay, so that was number 4. So if I took out my value sheet, when you sent me the questions, I'm like, oh, now I have to do it again, and I really got to think about it. But thank you for that challenge. I appreciate it completely.
And they change over time, as we shift and change, so things in our lives change. So
Absolutely.
how do these, I mean, I can see to some extent, but just tell us, how do these drive you?
Well, how do they drive me? Well, the thing is, I'm a people person. I have always been a people person. Anyone who knows me knows that I need people around me. But I have to say, how they drive me. Let me tell you how compassion drives me. I have an amazing mother, and she would be the first to say that there's not a lot of self-compassion there for herself. She really puts herself out for others to her detriment. And she's been my teacher, because I really am learning and challenging myself not to follow in those footsteps. And I love you, Mum. So if you ever hear about this, it comes from a place of love. She's not on Facebook. The other big thing is that until I went and spent time on my own and did some of my own personal growth on my own, you'd go to the groups and great, and you are always been passionate about self-growth. You don't do counselling and psychology if you're not passionate about the brain and helping it grow and be well. You don't do that. So that's why growth is so important to me. But I had to step away from my connections and also really face myself on my own and spend some time on my own. I used to date myself at one stage because I could not be on my own. I'd sit there and go, who am I going to call now? Like, I can't, like, woo. And I'm constantly either on the phone or something. But now it's like there is so much goodness in just being and just not having anyone else. And in fact, that personal growth thing that I really love to do, I'm very fortunate to have a husband who believes in us spending time to reboot ourselves and spend time reflecting on ourselves, even though he's very mechanically engineer minded. So every year we both get time out on our own where we get to do that. I get R&R, but I also spend a lot of time really reflecting on me and growing. And so that's why it's such an important part. I don't ever see myself not growing. So why wouldn't that be the case for my business? I want my business to grow. Obviously, I want my clients to grow. I want the people I help to grow and become a big, big, vibrant community. Yeah. And passion, well, what are we without some kind of, fire within our belly to do and achieve and create and have purpose? And so they're where they come from. Does that answer the question? I hope it does.
It does. It does. Thank you. Are there any particular world issues that call you to make this stand?
I hate injustice. Oh, I shouldn't use the word hate. All these shoulds, we should and shouldn't. Injustice really gets my goat. So I struggle with all the ism words, racism, sexism, all the ism words, and then all the obias, homophobia, xenophobia, all of those things that, ageism as well, I'll add ageism to that. Anything that puts people down and stops them from being seen as individuals who are here just like everyone else to meet their needs, to grow happy, healthy families, to be full, functioning, valuable people within our society, and that marginalises anyone. So I'm learning tolerance for people who are very into the isms and the obias.
Yeah. Awesome.
Something you get more and more of as you get older, the tolerance. Well, or you go the other way, you can become completely intolerant for it. I don't know which one it is.
And I think
I'll let you know in about 20 years' time.
I think also we learn alongside that tolerance is we learn to shore up our boundaries a little. Mm-hmm. So, that supports us to be in the space that we want to be in. Yes. If we've got some good boundaries. Yeah.
And I think also that I will qualify that, because you can love someone and still have and care about people, and they still have these views that you don't approve of or don't like. You just, maybe at times to say we don't talk about that. We don't mention those things around each other because we want to keep having that loving relationship, and you feel really strong about what you feel and I feel really strong about what I feel. So let's just agree to disagree and still care about each other.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know,
That's another way to do it.
Yeah, there's a whole conversation I've seen in more recent times talking about right and wrong, you know, and showing that, you know, it's kind of a bit of a perilous path. We've taken on that right and wrong notion, and so we come from judgment. And if we can let judgment go, then we can just see the opposing views and still be in that accepting place.
That's right. And we don't have to be right. Who said we have to be right? What's right for us may not be right for someone else.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know,
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just nice to be, I love that saying, you don't have to be right. It's better to be kind. And I think that, you know, choosing your battles is really important. You know, I know that sometimes I believe I'm more right on some things than my husband, you know, as a lot of us women do. I'm more right than him, but there's no point going there because they're allowed to their opinion too. They don't have to be, as my husband very kindly says to me at times, I don't have to be a double of you. That's not why you married me. I have my own opinions and it's okay. And it is okay. Big learning curve being with someone and marrying someone later in life. And after not having had that,
yeah.
and learning how to be with someone else in your space and not have the same opinion as them and still love them deeply, regardless of that.
Yes.
Yes.
You know, so we love all of them, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. As we hope they do with us.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, probably 30 years ago, I came across a professor from Harvard University, Howard Gardner, and he was the person who created in the first instance or put forward the notion that we don't just have one intelligence or we don't just have IQ. In fact, we have many intelligences. We've got practical, kinesthetic, emotional, spiritual, interpersonal, intrapersonal, musical, and more. And as I've come through from 2001, one of my missions has been to see, does humour have an intelligence, and could we package it up that way? So each of the guests that I've had have been asked this question, and the question is, do you think humour's got an intelligence behind it?
I think it does, but I also think there's another level, and there's a cultural lens over it too, because I live in a multicultural house. I come from a Greek heritage. I was born in Australia, but my husband was born in South America and was raised there. So we have two very, very, you know, the English humour, he doesn't always get it. Like, and I can watch English humour till the cows come home, you know. Likewise, but because we were in Australia, we grew up with American humour too. But I don't always get the South American humour, and he doesn't always get ours, and it can be really, and sometimes you can feel upset or offended, or because you just don't know where they're coming from.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that yes, humour is an intelligence, and there's some levels of humour that might be a little bit more highbrow than others, but I think that culture also plays a really big factor on the type of intelligence or the type of humour that comes out of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I met a lady, Pearl Duncan, Aboriginal lady, and she wrote a thesis on humour and the power it has in their culture on supporting them to manage difficulties. So an incredible paper, and you know, when I read the thesis, there were many similarities for the notion of humour. And, you know, we have self-deprecating humour. We can use it as a put down. We've got black humour. There are many different types of humour, and we've all got our own style and sense of humour.
Yeah.
I think some people have a bigger capacity for humour than others.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I also see a little difference between our sense of humour and our
Yes.
sense for humour. What are your thoughts?
I saw that as your questions and I kind of freaked out a bit because I kind of went, I don't know what I'm going to say. So yes, sense of humour. Sense of humour is, your sense of humour can be challenged. It can be challenged by life events, things that are going on. And at the same time, and I've worked in a lot of Aboriginal communities because I was born and raised in the Northern Territory and did a lot of work in the Indigenous space as well. But humour is such a strong foundation of resilience, I think.
Yes.
And those communities are I met some of the most resilient people I've ever met in my life. So Pearl is completely, I'm glad she wrote that paper. I haven't read it, but I can just imagine it's amazing. And so you can have a sense of humour, but your sense for humour can be challenged when you're going through something.
Yes, yes. And I see different people in different roles, like political cartoonists have a sense for humour.
Yeah, and we love those political cartoonists.
And they can see where it can go. So my old mentor, Mike Hutchison, back in New Zealand, he was MD of Saatchi and Saatchi, and he used to always say to me, Pat, humour yanks you off the path into the bushes.
Yeah.
And, that's what those political cartoonists do. They they take a, serious moment and, really turn it on its head. And sometimes it can be very, very clever.
Very clever.
Yes.
And, for me, situational humour is probably some of the most interesting and most enjoyable humour. The unexpected humour that comes from whatever situation you're in, and you can end up laughing for ages and not stopping. That is great humour. Often I find that more funny than the scripted humour that you can sometimes find. Yeah.
I do a lot of speaker training, and a lot of that is helping people to find their own innate sense of humour, and then be able to inject that. So it's not about telling jokes, although you can sometimes, tell jokes, but more about finding that natural thing because the audience are going to sense it. And, it's a wonderful way to engage people. And I was a nurse for 16 years. And
brave woman.
Since then have pondered, it's like we walked into the room and we created this really high trust environment straight away. And, we did pretty invasive, terrible things at times. And, here was this incredible thing that happened. So, part of that was the persona probably, and especially in the old days, the uniform, because you stepped into that and people saw it and there was this expectation. Nowadays, we don't have quite the same uniform thing to be creating that. And one of the things that I love is creating high trust environments. And in presenting, you need to be able to do that very quickly. Just thoughts around that. What's this relationship, do you think, between trust and humour?
Oh, I think it's strong, but I think in the end that there are some things that you can't factor for, and that's a person's life experiences. And you know, some people are naturally more trusting than others. I'm ridiculously trusting. And part of it is it's just who I am, and part of it is my ethnic background, because we're such a, you know, connected community, that your own personal space and how you are with people is very inclusive. So it's like, you know, even when you shouldn't trust someone, you kind of do. I think that people who are trusting will trust. But if you do give people a sense of humour that allows them to say, I get you.
Yes.
Then you can break down the barriers quite quickly.
Yes.
And that might come, you know, like if I meet, I'll just give you, if I meet another ethnic person, and they don't have to be from a Greek background, they can be Italian, Croatian, anything, you know, we all have this kind of like understanding of what it's like to grow up as an ethnic person in Australia as a second generation. We kind of like, and instantly, you know, the humour and the lines and the, you know, we kind of get it. And so I think that when you're working with people, if you have that thing that gets them, as women, when I'm working with women, it's like there's some things that we just know as women inherently that allows you to just break down the barriers.
Yes. And there's for me, there's always been a level of appropriateness or not. I think
Yes.
to be good-humoured is to be appropriately responsive or not, and having the wisdom and the listening to be able to differentiate.
Mm.
And you know, I still hold that space. You know, Patch Adams. You've heard of Patch Adams?
Oh, yep.
The clown doctor.
Mm-hmm.
I toured with him some years ago, and his mother is a diabetic, and she'd had poor circulation, and as a result, one of her legs had been removed. And Patch was there as she woke up from the anaesthetic, and he's 6'6" and big booming voice, and Mum's eyelids are fluttering open, and he leans in and he's patting her hand and he says, "Well, Ma, now you know what it's like to have one foot in the grave." So not everyone's going to laugh at that, because it's like, it's almost inappropriate. But what I get is only Patch could say that to his mother.
Yes, absolutely.
By merit of, number one, who he is, a great humorist, but also through relationship and context.
Mm.
So, you know, if someone else had come along, one of the nurses, for example, it probably wouldn't have.
Wouldn't have worked.
No.
One of my favorite jokes, and I have to, is it's a Greek cultural joke. And so when we get married, you say, "and to yours," right? And you say that to all the single people, right? And I've heard a comedian say this, who's from a Greek background, and the thing is, when you hit your 30s and they're still saying, "and to yours," and you get annoyed because they say it to the 10-year-olds at the wedding party too. It's like, really? They're 10. Anyway, "and to yours," and then you hit, you know, almost 40, and it's like, "and to yours." It's like, really? Are you going to ever stop saying it? I'm not getting married, or I haven't met anyone. Stop putting the salt in the wound, you know? So one comedian decided she'd start saying it at funerals, "and to yours." So she started to just, you know, take the pressure off her because she wasn't married yet. I just thought it was quite amusing. "And to yours."
Yes, and one of the things about, I did 2 pilot programs in aged care, and one of the things I like about, you know, this older age group is once you reach a certain point, you're no longer too fussed about things like chin hairs and you know, what might have concerned you 20 years ago is now not an issue. And so there's a real freedom there for self-expression.
Yes.
And I did a pilot in New Zealand, and there were two spinsters, both 83, and we used to, I would see them at the end of the day as like a departing thing. It was our little ritual. And we would have this one joke that was said the whole time. It was a conversation, but it was our joke, our ritual. Nothing changed. They thought it was hilariously naughty because it was good of them to be saying these things, and always peals of laughter. So it's not that the joke was that funny. It was the unity and the camaraderie, the intimacy,
and the context.
You know,
the context
was our intimacy.
Yeah, yes. And you know, the thing that to be careful of there as well is that sometimes there can be an inside joke, and it can also lead to some people feeling like outsiders. So, you know, we need to be open to our humour, and it's okay to have those inside jokes, but sometimes we've got to remember the context around us as well, because people can feel a bit left out at times.
Yeah. Which is part and parcel of, you know, my work, especially this last 20 years, of, you know, fostering the whole notion of what it means to be good-humoured, and, you know, what the expansive thing around that can be. And, you know, creating high-trust environments. I've been presenting a mental health in the workplace program just recently, and I've 97% men in the room, and I've just been stoked with the shared vulnerability that has come.
Oh, nice.
Group of men, and there's probably no strategy that I use at the outset, but there's a little sharing of my story. So, you know, a little vulnerability on my part, and the bigger picture, you know, suicide, the incidence of suicide in this country, for example. And there's just a readiness now to engage that I wouldn't have seen 20 years ago. Yeah. So how do you create this trusting environment? Do you have some thoughts, processes?
I use tools.
Yep.
And combine them. So, you know, I always like to have a really nurturing environment. So anytime anyone opens up, that's just a beautiful, wonderful thing. But at the start of all my workshops, I always take some virtue cards with me, and I ask everyone to draw a card.
Yes.
And you know, it's really interesting when everyone shares that, you know, that card, what's the one big thing that got your attention in that card, you know? And it starts to open up people's stories before the workshop has even started. But I figure if someone's walked into a room, has sat down, they are wanting to hear something, but they're also there to make some change. So then hopefully they're going to say something that says, I'm here and I'm ready. I also make sure that we talk about the kind of environment we want to have in the workshop. So, you know, I get them to contribute to that sense. And I also, you know, I join in. I make myself vulnerable as well. And I think that there are two minds about that. You know, some people say don't share about yourself, but at the same time, I'm asking you to. And I'm not going to share anything that's not relevant or unhelpful. But you will, you know, it's my way of saying we're all in this together. You know, I might be out here and talking to you and sharing something with you, but tomorrow I might be going through some of the experiences that you are. And then I'm not immune to them, you know, whether you've got a person in the room who's lost a relative or a pet even, or they're suddenly become a carer unexpectedly, or one of their children have gotten sick, or suddenly there's a divorce going on. It doesn't matter, you know, we're all human. We all go through experiences, and we all go through transitions. I'm transitioning something every other day, you know. It's normal. It's normal. And I think that what I love about the way things have changed in the supporting area and in the helping modalities is that gone is the thing of I'm this expert who's to be seen and seen as this high almighty expert. And I think that the web has really helped break that down. I'm here just to reflect some knowledge to you, and you all take that knowledge and share it amongst each other and create new ways of seeing things. You know, I'm not going to tell you this is the way you must do it. You know, that's for me. That's how you and just have fun doing it. Make sure you have fun doing it, and encourage people to have fun while they're doing it, you know.
I love that you use the virtues cards. I've been part of the Virtues Project since about 2001, and
lovely.
Just love their work. So that's awesome. And I also use some other cards from UQ Power.
Okay.
I'll share those with you afterwards. You might like those as well.
I'm in.
Yes. I think too, when we share, we give in that sharing, and I guess for me, it's fairly strategic. It's relevant, you know, it's relevant to the audience that I'm with. Is we give them permission, and you know, it opens up something. And I had one woman come. I had been doing quite well in my speaking in New Zealand, and I had, you know, the nice car and the great clothes, and I arrived looking good. And however, I was still living in my overdraft and transitioning, you know. And I shared that. I've written a couple of books, and, you know, however, there's still this vulnerability. And one woman came to me afterwards, and she said, you know, when you shared that story, I was just so heartened. We had sat at the table last night and discussed and resolved. We've done all we can to try and save the house. We're going to have to sell. She said, after hearing your story today, she said, I'm going home and I'm going to find a way. And she rang about 6 weeks later, and they had found a way. So we don't know where it's going to go. And you know, I really encourage anyone, you know, who I'm coaching, who's presenting, to go with what's there intuitively for you, because we don't know. You know,
and I think long gone are the days of the person lying on the couch telling their story, and the person going, tell me more, yes, and then what happened? I think that exists, but I just think that is not really what people connect to anymore when they're seeking help. I had a friend say to me, I went to see someone and they just went, and she said, well, I can go, to me too, you know? So I wrote down what I said to her, and then I started working on myself. So unless you've got something more than the nodding of the head and the yes, and tell me more, because people want to be supported, but they want advice. They want options. They want a toolkit. They want a tool bag of, you know, information and skills that they can walk away with and apply in their life.
Yeah. And sometimes being able to have that deeper conversation, or indeed a two-way conversation, you know, the tennis match, the banter, the rapport, can help people see what they couldn't see before.
Absolutely.
They get to see for themselves. It's like, oh, I never saw that until just talking to you now.
Yeah.
So, you know, the gift is in that, I think, you know, a lot of my presentations now, even a workshop, it's much more, yes, it's got some structure and, you know, intention, but I'm going to go with what's in the room. And,
Absolutely.
you know, in doing that, then, you know, there may be pieces, well, you know, we didn't do as much there that we thought we would, but look at what we unearthed. So,
Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
and that's, you know, being able to do that well is about being able to have a deeper conversation. My vision for 2020 is that we will be having an intimacy revolution. Now, that doesn't mean getting into bed with each other, not in that context anyway.
On a heart-to-heart context.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing some shifts and changes around that. And, you know, this age group that you're targeting have the wisdom to support that. And, you know,
absolutely.
The next generation that's coming through, they're going to need that wisdom, I think, particularly so in a way that maybe not for other generations. They've had, you know, huge technology influence, and they haven't had the personal engagement.
Absolutely. And this is where women are really, really important. Really important, because we are the nurturing gender. And that's not to say that there aren't nurturing men out there. I'm not generalizing in that way. I'm just saying we're a nurturing gender. That's what we are. And it's so for so long, the workplace has been driven from a very masculine perspective. And I think that anyone who's worked in a big organisation, as you will have as a nurse, has seen the women who have been emasculated and deal with the world like men, and who've really struggled to empathise with the women around them. And it's all been this adversarial kind of environment that's really been toxic. And I don't think that there's any one of us who can say we've never worked in an environment where we have been bullied.
Yes.
We have, yes. Yes, I've worked in more than one environment that I've been bullied. You know, and I can honestly say the bullying started at school and just kept going. And that's why I'm so passionate about women raising each other up instead of tearing each other down, because we have been good at that too. And I think the recent things that have been happening in politics, and as someone who has worked in politics, it is a cutthroat area, but it is also one of the most toxic environments I have ever worked in as far as bullying goes. And I don't think women should have to work in that kind of toxicity. And most of it is and I don't know what it's like in Canberra. I can't say because, and I'm not in, you know, not saying, but I just think that women can be really good at tearing each other down. And that's not okay. But I thank those who bullied me along the way, because I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about me and my resilience, and I wish them well, but it's not the way that I will ever choose to interact in the world. And I think that sometimes you need that contrast to become more of the person that you want to be.
Yes, yes. John DeMartini talks a lot about bullying and the opportunity that is there when we encounter it. Maria, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Do you have some final wisdom that you'd like to share with the viewers about your work and, you know, bringing more joy?
Bringing more joy. Well, I think the thing that is most important around that is to find the joy in you. And you know, you can be self-deprecating humor and all the rest of it, but I think that there is a level of humor that can be quite, if it's too much, can be quite damaging. And you know, that sort of backhanded humor can hurt people. So I think that the first step is to find a space of joy and laughter within yourself about who you are, and love about who you are. You know, I love humor, and I guess if I could just say quickly, one of the things that I've learnt over the last month is how much I love to interview people. It's almost like I've brought together my three passions at the same time, which is I love performing because I've done occasional stage work, and I love the whole counselling psychology, finding out that information and asking the right questions, and then bringing in the humour. Like I'm just like it's almost like I'm in this Zen moment when I'm interviewing. I absolutely adore it, and I wouldn't have known this if I hadn't started Retiring with Joy TV. So if you can find the things that bring together the passions in your life, and you stay within that, and you try and find it as often as possible, you can, man, the laughter and the joy that comes with that.
Awesome.
For yourself, and then it goes woo everywhere else.
Yes.
Yes.
If people would like to find out more, what's the best place to find you?
On Facebook at Retiring with Joy TV. I have got my online show there, and I also have a support group called Retiring with Joy, Filling the World with Feminine Sunshine. I say that my mission is to share the wisdom, the light, and the feminine sunshine of women. So that's what I'm all about with that group. We have a Tuesday Joy Tips where I share a tip on how to connect with your joy, and you know, sometimes it's dealing with serious topics and handling those, because you know, serious things happen in life, and they can affect you being joyous. So we talk about those things too, and yeah, so head to the page. And last month we did a fantastic series called Zazzy Women Over 60, and goodness me, there was some great laughter to be had there. So go and rewatch the episodes. There's 8 episodes up already for that, and I still have one more to go, which we didn't get to do because I had a sick child. But go and watch them. They're so much fun. There's so much wisdom, and we laugh and enjoy, and yeah, that's what it's all about.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining
My pleasure.
Today.
Thank you for all the joy and fun we've had today.
Yes, awesome. Awesome to meet you.
Great to meet you too.
And we'll meet face to face sometime soon, I'm sure.
I hope so. I hope so.
You've been watching. Yeah, thank you. You've been watching another episode of the Laughter Channel, where human interest meets humour interest. My guest has been Maria Paterakis. I hope I'm saying that correctly.
Perfect.
Yes, wonderful. And we look forward to seeing you next time on the Laughter Channel.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.